Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Somos Moss Instant Reaction. My name, of course, is Seth Biloff. Joining me this evening, Jacob Terrell. Earl may or may not pop in. We're not entirely sure. But let's just jump right into it. U.S. Open Cup round of 32. New Mexico United falls to Austin FC by a final of 2-0. Jacob, before we dive into any sort of deep discussion, what was your instant reaction to that one?
They were the better team. It was apparent from pretty early. I would have loved to have seen what would have happened if we'd have scored first, but once they got that set piece goal, it was kind of they're just kind of better. We played better in the second half. They sat back more, definitely. They were definitely not on the front foot. They didn't look to push. And Tim Bacchus kept us in the match a little bit there at the end. But at the end of the day, when you're pushing as much as we were, you're going to get those chances. You're going to give up those kind of chances if you don't capitalize on your chances. So the saves made by Alex there at the end didn't really make me feel like we played worse in the second half. That was just kind of the nature of the game when you're in that kind of pushing for a second or a first goal when you're down by 2. You're going to give up chances on the break if you don't make the right play every time. And so, but now we can focus on the league and see if we can get our shit together there.
Yeah, watching this game tonight, and admittedly, I was slightly distracted during some of it because I got a request to go and do a thing. But
it was very vague. I liked it.
No, it was
drug deal. It was a drug deal. That's what it was.
We'll say that. No, it was station related, and Mike, you do realize I'm working right now, right? Doing the thing for the game. So, hey, there we go. Robert in the chat. ATX sucks. Screw the Broccolis. Hey, I agree with you, man. Just watching again, the first half felt a lot like last week at RGV. We couldn't string together 2 passes. We couldn't hold possession. We weren't aggressive enough. We were soft on and off the ball. Were there some calls that probably maybe could have been made? Yes. Our best chance the entire first half was Santi Moar's shot, in my opinion. And I mean, Santi didn't miss by much, could have been taken slightly better, but yeah, just overall, I mean, we did not look good in the first half. Like you said, we did look better in the second half, but again, it's not a performance that's going to win you anything.
No.
And like you said, Austin did sit back a bit more, and they played more on the counter there in the second half. But yeah, credit Alex Bacchus. I think he had 6 or 7 saves on the night. Definitely kept us, within striking distance. And then, of course, at the end, Wags had an opportunity there. But yeah, just overall, an uninspired performance for most of the match. Austin outplayed us. And this is one that I truly felt that we could have walked away with a win, given the injury situation at Austin, given the fact that offensively they really hadn't done much. 6 goals from offensive players in 10 matches. Yeah, it's a bit of a letdown, if you ask me.
I mean, I'm never going to be like, oh, man, we should have won that game when it comes to an MLS team playing at an MLS team. Now, it's one thing if you're playing the Rapids you're playing the Rapids in a stadium that has more United fans than Rapid fans at that particular game. And then you play FC Dallas at a college stadium like we did a couple years ago or 4 years ago now at this point. My goodness. But going to Austin is a different beast. It's kind of like the Minnesota match of that 2019 run as far as, not the best MLS team. What is going on over there? A war? Or what? Or...
It's somewhere in the distance. So I'm not worried about it.
It's pretty loud if it's somewhere in the distance.
Yeah,
it sounds like it's but it's that same Minnesota where it's a fairly new MLS team with a nice stadium, a big rowdy fan base, Now, obviously, that was the round of 8 and not the round of 32. But I still was thinking it was going to be a tough chance. However, I do think if Santi scores there, or if Hurst can pull off the miraculous chip from midfield, because Stuber
Yeah.
was out for sure. He was if Hurst could have put that on frame, I think it would have been a pretty tough play for the keeper to make. But maybe if one of those things happens and we get an early lead and Austin gets shell shocked because they haven't had a good season, and so maybe if they're like, holy shit, are you serious? Now we're losing to a USL side. Maybe they hang their heads a little, and we can get more on the front foot in the first half. Because I thought until they scored, I thought it was fairly even. As far as chances, they had a little more possession, but we were able to capitalize when we did get possession. And then that set piece goal, I mean, what a flick, what a header.
Yeah.
Just in an incredible play there for them to get that first goal. They take the corner to the near post, and I can't remember who it was, but he makes a run from the middle of the pitch towards this corner where it was taken from, and just gets a flick to it, barely sends it to the far post. Tambakis doesn't quite react fast enough, and I mean, just a fantastic goal. And to United's credit, I don't think we hung our head after that, because the next goal did come because we were pushing for a goal and they kind of caught us on the counter. So it wasn't like we were just like, oh man, it's over. I do feel like we pushed a little bit. And then once they scored that second goal, it was like, okay, let's just get to halftime, basically, is kind of how I thought it went. Was, hey, let's get to halftime down 2. We'll see what we can do coming out in the second half. And so it wasn't an inspiring performance by any means, but I don't feel like it was as bad as the RGV match.
Oh no.
Especially when you're looking at competition, location, and the fact that they were able to, at least try to fight back. And so, yeah, that first half, I think, could have gone a little differently. And the second half, like we said, I mean, we didn't really create any clear-cut chances, but we had a couple where we were 1 or 2 passes away from having a good look. We had possession. They definitely parked the bus on us. And then they were able to counter pretty well. And like you said, Tambakis kind of stood on his head there in the second half for us to keep us within striking distance. The offense just couldn't do enough. And we saw some subs that came on, kind of made a difference. I thought Alex's energy was good when he first came on. We saw the return, luckily, of Chris Wehan, who was awesome to see in the 18 and awesome to see get back out there. And I thought he brought a little bit of energy for a little while there, even if he wasn't on the ball much. And so some good things, some not so good things. I'm not gonna put this in the category of, oh, we suck now, by any means. It's not a Fire Prince thing. It's not a, man, we just looked terrible. They were the better team. We still fought, maybe not as much as we would have liked to have seen. And so,
sorry, I had to throw in the Waterboy reference. But yeah, no, I mean, looking at this, like you said, playing an MLS side, obviously there is going to be that scale up in competition. But even still, I mean, there were so many just mental mistakes, and I think it was Watson. I think it was Watson Kerr on the call, and like, look, I appreciate Mike Watson, Devin Kerr. I really do. I think they're one of the best broadcasting duos in the league. But for them to, and this is a problem I have with the broadcast. They were They were like constantly questioning the validity of some fouls that were called against Austin. When like you see, I think it was late in the first half, you see Justin Portillo just get taken out by from the back. Player clips the back of his knee, Justin goes down, and they're questioning the validity of the foul. Like, it's clear foul. Like,
yeah,
you can't be sitting there questioning fouls when they're there. But at the same time, yeah, like heavy touches, we just couldn't face the run of play. We couldn't string passes together. We weren't defending very well. And you can see the press. And this is one thing I thought that they pointed out really well on the broadcast was that you could see our front five pushing and trying to put on a high press.
Yeah, but the back four
giant
space.
space.
Gap, yep.
Yeah, and Austin did it throughout the night. They just played over that second line.
And that's how they got the second goal, actually.
Yeah.
I remember now. It wasn't necessarily on the counter, but they were trying to play it out of the back. We were trying to press and then found the gap. Swartz gets pulled way up because there's just a huge gap there, and kind of gets in behind, gets beaten behind. We get pulled back fours next. It was rough, but what the heck is going on over here? My computer's acting funny at times. But yeah, it was an issue for sure. But to lose 2-0, to fight back in the second half, to have a couple chances to score first. Obviously, I, like you, kind of thought we had a chance to win going into the match, but it was pretty apparent once we started playing that they were definitely going to be on the front foot. Two team that we were playing, they weren't playing the kids. They had maybe not their A team out there, but like their B+ team out there for sure. And so they definitely wanted to take it serious. They wanted to put on a show for their fans. And we saw, USL really kind of struggled this year against MLS opponents. Really only had, I think we only had the one USL MLS upset yesterday with Pittsburgh Riverhounds beating the Revolution. And then we saw 5-0 at halftime with Columbus playing the kids. Monterey Bay fought back last night against LAFC and forced extra time, actually took the lead in extra time before giving it up and then losing in penalties. That was against the kids for LAFC. And so not the best showing this year for USL in the Open Cup, but we do still have Pittsburgh and we still have Birmingham as they played another USL side, Memphis, today and came out on top. So got 2 in the 16. Maybe we can get a win somewhere in there and have some USL people to root for. It's nice that they're East Coast teams that we can root for instead of having to root for Sacramento like we did last year. But no, there's not a whole lot to take away from this, in my opinion. It was hard fought in the second half to an extent, and Austin was just happened to be the better club tonight. And I'm not going to say it was by a lot, but it was by enough, pretty easily enough.
Yeah, they're really, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, we really didn't put up enough of a challenge to Austin FC. And when it comes to this type of tournament, you have to be at your best every single time a cup week comes up.
Yeah.
It did bring up a couple questions I still want to ask. I know they changed the format this year just slightly. You had 8 MLS teams enter, or 24 MLS teams enter last week, 8 teams enter this week. Looking at the format, do you think there's still an issue? And of all the matchups we could potentially have this week, you had one USL versus USL matchup. And we saw, I think it was only 3 of the 8 USL clubs host a match this week: Loudoun, Birmingham, and Pittsburgh, I believe.
No, Pittsburgh was away. Pittsburgh was was at Gillette. Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't remember. I thought they might have been Monterey hosted and Sacramento hosted. So 4. Yeah. So 4 of the 8 USL teams hosted. Do you think there's room for a change in the format next year to do more along the lines of what the FA Cup does, where lower league teams always host unless they just can't? And do you think that the Open Cup committee potentially makes the decision to prevent USL versus USL matchups, here in these, in maybe even as far as the round of 32?
Would I like to see it? Sure. Will it happen? No. As far as the hosting thing, I actually think, you had 8 USL teams. 2 of them were playing each other, if I'm reading right. So really only had 7 chances to host an MLS side, and 4 of them were USL teams that hosted. So the majority of teams that played MLS sides hosted. I think that's fine. Maybe in the case of USL teams playing MLS teams, you can make it to where they can host or have to host, unless it's like a United situation one year where we just the baseball field's taken, the UNM's taken, whatever. Unless that's the case, then maybe you could do that. But I just think that having an MLS team travel to Florida Soccer Soldiers probably isn't going to work.
I'd love to see that. I would love to see that.
And so, and they're never going to make it happen because U.S. Soccer and the U.S. Open Cup is driven by MLS. It's not. It's make no mistake. It's not necessarily about us or growing U.S. Soccer. And again, that's the reason why I don't think we see a rule on USL versus USL. Mainly because they're trying to keep this regional, and that's kind of just the way it worked out this year. Was you had a couple regions that had more than one USL team, and in that region they just happened to draw each other. And so I'm not here to put on my tinfoil hat and say have some conspiracy theories about how it's rigged and this and that and the other. I think overall the draw was pretty good this year. Like I said, the majority of teams playing MLS sides hosted. We only had the one USL matchup as far as this round. And so it is what it is. I think at the end of the day, the draw shouldn't matter. Like if New Mexico United's gonna win this thing, they're gonna probably have to go on the road to an MLS side at some point. Mm-hmm. And that's just the way it is. And I mean, look at in 19 when we made it to the quarterfinals, we had to go on the road and we won 4 games on the road. That can be part of it depending on how the draw sets up for you. And that year we just didn't host at all. So, or we didn't even put in to host at all. So it is what it is. I wouldn't mind seeing some stuff, but we're obviously, not at liberty to actually change that as far as me and you are concerned.
Yeah. Real quick, looking at the other 2 matches currently in progress. Portland Timbers, Real Salt Lake, 3-3 in 56 minutes. Michael Chang, a name that we're familiar with, scored for Real Salt Lake this evening. And the other game in progress is LA Galaxy, Seattle Sounders, 58th minute. LA Galaxy leads that one 1-0 currently. Jacob, before we get out of here, I did want to ask you, since you weren't on the show last night, the Troy Lesesne news. I want to get your reaction to that and see how you felt about DC United. And really Troy getting a shout in the pre-match stuff from the Austin FC coach as well.
Yeah. I'd sent you a podcast clip a couple months ago or a month or so ago from the Extra Time Pod, an MLS podcast that I listen to pretty frequently. And David Goss on there had mentioned Troy Lesesne basically being tabbed as the next guy because their head coach at the time he came into that job already expecting to leave. Basically, from my understanding, it's either Stauber or Stuber or Stover or Stuver. I can't remember exactly what it is. It's late, and I side note, baby brain is for sure a thing in the dads too. I did not know this. I did not remember this, anyways. But I sent like 3 emails Tuesday without attachments on them. Just weird stuff. So, but anyways, he got hired. Basically just to get him back in the Red Bull organization, and then was pretty much told, hey, you're going to be moving to Salzburg or Leipzig or something like that eventually. So he had one foot out the door when he came in. Mm-hmm. And so they kind of pegged Troy as somebody that could be the next guy. And on the Extra Time podcast after this news broke, they were like, yeah, it might be a couple months sooner than what they might have expected, but not by much. And so I'm stoked for him. I think that's part of the reason why he took that job anyways, is because it was kind of maybe hinted at that he would have a chance depending on how things go. And so saw a lot of backlash from Red Bull fans about it, that were not happy with the no-name hiring and whatnot. But at the end of the day, me and you both know Troy is a tremendous guy and a great coach and a great leader. Specifically, we saw that in clips from Red Bull of his speeches and stuff like that, and him talking about the U.S. Open Cup before the match. And I couldn't be happier for him. I couldn't be happier that they started off with a win, albeit against a very bad team in the Open Cup. But I think he can do really good, and I pray that he can shut some of the haters up and perform somewhat. And from what I'm hearing, there's decent chances that he'll be back next year, kind of regardless of how this season plays out. And so I'm stoked for him. He deserves it for sure. And I think the only problem that people have with him is that he's so baby-faced, and then he's so small that they just have a hard time taking him seriously. But no, he's a great guy, great leader, and I really hope DC can turn it, or New York Red Bulls can turn it around. And you said DC United earlier, and it got stuck in my head for some reason. Hopefully Red Bulls can turn it around, and now it's nice to be a Red Bull fan. Never had an interest there, but I don't really have an Eastern Conference team, so now I get to pull for them and hope they can do some stuff. And they're obviously, he's kind of behind the 8 ball this year, but 9 teams make the playoffs, so I wouldn't be surprised if he can sneak in there. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, real quick shout out over in the chat, Coach Steve, another great coach that we know and are close with. So Coach Steve, appreciate you being here. He says, "Hola, man, awesome for Troy." Absolutely is. Yeah, we talked about last night, talking about with Jacob here tonight. Great news for Coach Troy. New York Red Bulls pick up a win in his first ever match at the helm. The Red Bulls fans that came over asking about him were pretty gracious, and there were some folks that kind of were like, "Okay, you're going to get similar things all the time." Not a lot of flexibility, but he's a super nice guy,
So where did they come ask? I missed.
There were some people over on United Nation. There were some folks over on Reddit as well asking about it. So, Troy, great opportunity for him. Like I said last night, excited to see what he does. Certainly don't want to see him do well against Atlanta United, but
I still want him to do well. I want him to do the best against Atlanta United.
Okay. All right.
It is kind of an interesting hire though, because when you think of the Red Bull organization from Leipzig to Salzburg to New York, it's balls to the wall press is how I always think of them. And that's, we saw elements of that with Troy, but it wasn't necessarily his forte. So it'll be interesting to see if Red Bull, if New York Red Bull kind of makes him say, no, you're going to play the pressing style, or if they brought him in to tweak the press and kind of play with a little more possession, or be at least comfortable with a little more possession and not so frantic and go type. And so very interested to see that. I'll be watching way more Red Bulls games than I've thought I was ever going to watch. So, but yeah, just awesome for Troy. Awesome for New Mexico United in a way. Just to have somebody that coaches you, that gets to move up and end up coaching an MLS team, and not only an MLS team, but a New York Red Bull MLS team is probably, even though they're having a down year, is one of the more recognizable names just because they're in that Red Bull branding. And so that Red Bull branding, we saw players like coaches like Jesse Marsh move up that Red Bull ladder to Leipzig and Salzburg, and then he eventually obviously ended up over in Leeds, and now he's out of there. But who knows?
Potentially U.S. men's national team head coach Jesse Marsh.
Yeah, I doubt it, but we'll see. But with Troy, I mean, I think he wants to stay in this. I think in my opinion, Troy would rather stay here and coach, just plant roots at New York and stay there. But also, I don't think if he does good there and they say, "Hey, would you be interested in coaching Red Bull Salzburg?" that he's going to be like, no, I'm good. You're obviously going to take that leap. And so just it opens up a ton of new doors for him. We got 2 former United ties up there in New York now, with Mizell still over at NYCFC. And so maybe we need to get to New York and watch the Red Bulls NYFC match later this year or next year.
Might not be a bad idea. All right, Jacob, one last question before we get out of here on our instant reaction show. I got Earl's prediction last night for Monterey Bay on Saturday. What is your prediction for
so I'm going to throw realism out the window because I think that we are going to be angry. I think we have kind of shown that we will play better at home this year than we will away. We're probably a little upset at Monterey Bay for the match that we had over there, kind of getting it taken to us over there. We did both play midweek matches, but Monterey Bay did go into extra time and have the emotional roller coaster of PKs. So I'm gonna come out and do you remember last year what my score line was that I predicted a lot?
4-0.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Okay.
And that's not what I'm doing today, though. That's not what I'm doing today. No, I'm going to go 3-1.
3-1. All right. I believe that's what Earl said last night as well. So,
well, if I'll go 3-0 then.
3-0. All right. There you go.
3-0.
All right, Jacob. That being said, again, New Mexico United falls to Austin FC in the round of 32 of the 2023 U.S. Open Cup. And United's Open Cup run for the season is done. Focus on the league and see what happens there. So, Jacob, go ahead and get us out of here.
Yeah, guys. Thanks Seth and Earl for going on last night and carrying the torch without me. And nice. Steve is going to join us on the trip to New York, his old stomping ground, he says. Yeah, thanks to you guys for holding down the fort last night without me. Thanks for everybody watching and commenting and liking and sharing and all that jazz. We'll be back next Tuesday, 9:00 normal time, breaking down the Monterey Bay match and looking forward to whatever matches after that. I cannot recall off the top of my head because I haven't been paying that much attention to the schedule, but I do know that it is away wherever it is. So we'll be talking about a couple matches. We might touch on this one a little bit, depending on if Earl joins and has any relative thoughts on it. But other than that, yeah, just thank you guys so much. Thank you for the congratulations on the baby. Everybody is still doing good. And so we will continue to, I will continue to balance this and my job and 4 kids and hopefully not let it affect too much, but I will be back next week for sure. And so again, 9:00 next week, tune in. And until then, guys,